This seminar was held in April 2020 by Jorico Training and Alibaba Cloud Academy. This video is an extraction of the online seminar where Dr. Bo provided an introduction of cloud computing and Alibaba Cloud service.
Okay, so I'm Bo. So nice to meet you guys. As everyone knows that the cloud computing has been more and more popular during the past years. So I think it's a good opportunity for me to actually share my knowledge with you guys what actually cloud computing is. And so let's start. Can everyone see the screen? Okay. So I think we start with a brief history of cloud computing. So as you may see from the graph here, the idea of cloud computing could be traced back to roughly 60 years ago. So the earliest thinker of cloud computing is believed to be John McCarthy, who introduced mainframe time sharing at around, I think, 1955. So interestingly, he is actually the guy who is coined for artificial intelligence. So tens of years later, with the growth of technology, especially the virtualization technology and the internet, cloud computing has evolved a lot and gained popularity because the companies gradually obtain a better understanding of its services and usefulness. A good example of early adopter would be Salesforce.com, who launched their website-based enterprise architecture in 1999, which makes a huge success. So in 2006, AWS firstly launched its commercial cloud services, which includes ECS and S3, which helped a lot of small to medium-sized companies with their IT resources. And since then, cloud computing started to take off. On the other hand, Alibaba Cloud was founded in 2009, and it started to support the Double 11 shopping day from the following year. So soon it became the best cloud vendor in China and also in APC region. All right, so that's a brief history of cloud computing. So next, I want to talk about what actually is cloud computing. So if you ask 100 people of what is actually cloud computing, you probably get 100 different answers. So I just bring one from NIST, which is National Institute of Standard and Technology from US, a very famous institute. So they said, cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand next network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. So this may sound a bit academic to you. So use a layman term. Basically, cloud computing is just a way to renting IT resource via internet. And also it have a bunch of good features as I listed here. So resource pooling, on-demand self-services, easy maintenance, and so on. So it's okay if you don't understand some of the terms. So I'll explain some of them in the later slides. So before actually we look into the good features that the cloud computing have, I want to introduce you with the three basic models that are widely used in cloud computing. So as you can see from the diagram, the three models are infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, also known as IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So the three models usually are suitable for different scenarios. So S is usually for hosting. So the cloud vendor will provide you with networking, storage, virtualization, and server. So this kind of model is usually intended for system admins. And some example will be the Alibaba Cloud ECS and VPC. So on the other hand, we have PaaS, which the cloud vendor will provide you with the runtime and middleware and also operating systems. So this is usually intended at developers. So basically, developer can use these existing runtime middleware operating system provided by the vendor to make their life a lot easier. Some example could be Alibaba Cloud, Elastic MapReduce, and Google App Engine. And finally, let's talk about SaaS, which is software as a service. So I think this kind of model is quite familiar with everyone because it's targeted at end user. So for this kind of model, you don't need to worry about the patching. You don't need to worry about how to build the stuff or what kind of data is used there, and the development of course. All you need to do is use it. So I think a good example will be DingTalk, Dropbox, and also like something like WeChat, like also Microsoft Outlook, this kind of stuff. Everything actually, this kind of software is actually the software we use daily. So they're actually based on a SaaS model. Okay, so after talk a lot, you may be a bit confused of what actually is this kind of services. What's the difference between them? Yeah. So I think it's probably better I give you some kind of example. So here I use Hotpot as a service to actually show you what's the difference and help you to get a better understanding of what's the difference between the three models. Yeah, as you can see from the diagram here, we have 4 scenarios. Yeah, namely the homemade one, which mimics the on-prem, and kitchen as a service mimics the IaaS model, and working as a service to mimic the PaaS model, and finally Hotpot as a service to mimic the software as a service. Let's start from the on-prem. So for the on-prem, as you can see, so let's say you want to have Hotpot, but you want to have a homemade one. So you need to get a kitchen, you need to get a stove, you need to get pot and soup and ingredients, and also you need to cook it. So if you don't have, so you can't find a stove at home, so you need to buy one, or your stove is out of gas, so you need to buy the gas, which means if there's anything wrong with one of the procedure, you need to solve that by yourself. Yeah. So next, let's move to kitchen as a service. Okay, so I'll give you a kind of story. So your friend invites you to a Hotpot party at his place. So he said, I have the kitchen, I have the stove, I have the pot ready. So all you need to do is buy some ingredients, buy some veggie, buy some meat, and also help me with the soup because I don't know how to cook the soup. Okay, so that's some kind of kitchen as a service. So you bring in your soup, your ingredient, and you cook it for it. So next, let's talk about working as a service. Okay, so the same story. So because you don't have a lot of experience make soup. So last time you went to your friend's place and make a really shitty soup, and you don't really enjoy the flavor of that soup. So the Hotpot doesn't taste that good. Okay, so your friend 2 weeks later, your friend say, can we have a Hotpot again? Because last time wasn't that enjoyable because the soup wasn't good. So so you talk to your friend. Since both of us don't have experience making soup, let's go to a restaurant. So you decide to go to a restaurant. So you pick a Hotpot buffet in the restaurant. So this time, all you need to do is just go to the restaurant and ask them to serve you everything. So basically the Hotpot, and you go to the chef to pick the ingredients you like. So you pick the lamb, pick the beef, whatever, then put it into your Hotpot and cook it. Then you can enjoy it. So that's working as a service. Also mimics the PaaS model. So next is the SaaS model. So the final one. Okay, so so both your friend and you enjoys the Hotpot experience that you had in the restaurant. Okay, so you decide to have another Hotpot 2 weeks later. However, the COVID-19 outbreaks. So all the restaurants start to only serve the takeaways. So you can't have the Hotpot there. And also they will give you a pre-built ingredients. So it's more like a malatam instead of Hotpot. So this time, which means this time you don't need to worry about what kind of ingredients you're gonna choose and how to cook it. So All the stuff is actually handled by the vendor, so the restaurant here. Okay, so that's the SaaS model. Can you mute? Sorry, can you mute? Jorico, can you mute the guy who's talking?
Yes, already have.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so let's continue. So now let's move on to why we need to use cloud computing. What's the benefit of use cloud computing? So I have listed a bunch of benefits here. So it's the outstanding one. It's the signature one, but it's not limited to these 6. There's more. Okay, so let's start with the cost efficiency. So compared to the traditional IT solution, so use cloud computing from your cloud can make your solution much more cost effective. Why is that? So firstly, use cloud computing means you're trading your capital expense for a variable expenses, as you don't need to invest any time or any money to set up your infrastructure. And secondly, the major cloud vendors usually have a large-scale data center, which means that will bring you with the cost benefit from massive economics of scale. And thirdly, there's several different payment options you can choose. For example, if you want to go with a short-term project, you're probably gonna choose pay-as-you-go option, which means you don't need to pay any of the computer resource that you're not using. And if you have saying a long-term commitment on the project and it's an ongoing project, so you probably want to go with the subscription model. In a sense, you get a lower unit price. Okay, so that's the cost efficiency. So now let's talk about the data security. Okay, so the data security is actually more complex in the cloud computing than the traditional ones. However, this kind of heavy lifting part is managed by your vendor, so you don't need to worry about this kind of messy stuff, how to handle the data security. So all you need to do is to make sure that your access credentials, which is basically your user account and your password, doesn't leak, and also your applications that you build on top of the cloud doesn't have any security issue. Okay, so that's the data security. And also, as you can see from the third one, which is the unlimited storage space. So that's pretty easy to understand. I'll give you an example. So I think most of the people that use iPhone have this kind of experience. So you bought a new iPhone, then you use for 2 years, you took a lot of photos, and finally you find out there's not enough space for you to take more photos. So what do you do with this? Usually you have 2 options. If you're pretty rich and you don't trust any cloud vendors, what do? You buy a new iPhone. Yeah. So what's the other one that normally people would do? So they usually put these photos to iCloud. So iCloud here is one of the cloud offerings that provided by Apple. So when you actually upload the file to iCloud, do you care about how much data you actually upload to the cloud? You don't. If that's within your package, you can upload as much data as you want, because potentially that's an unlimited storage space. So all this management of the infrastructure, storage infrastructure, and the planning for any data growth in the future is taken by the cloud vendor. Yeah. So for you, it's an unlimited data storage space. Okay. Next, let's talk about the elasticity. So it's a very good I should say I think it's the most charming part of cloud computing. So firstly, what is the elasticity? So basically, elasticity is the way that cloud computing can scale the computing resource. So it basically means that cloud can scale up or scale down the resource usage as need basis. What does that mean? So usually the time that it used to increase or decrease the IT resource usage is measured in minutes or even in seconds. So this allowed the cloud user to deal with sudden peaks of traffic. So for example, on the day actually at the midnight of Double 11, a lot of people were just sitting in front of their laptop and click on the button just to get a very discounted goods, right? So if you use a traditional solution, you will probably need to reserve a lot of capacity for this kind of event. However, after the event, all these resources will probably just be wasted. So with a cloud computing, however, the resource can be quickly scaled up to meet the demand. And after the event, the cloud computing will just release that resource, and you will pay less. Okay. And so next is the backup and recovery. So I should actually talk this combined with the storage. So as you know that for cloud computing, usually for most of the vendors, something like Alibaba Cloud, they can offer you offer you an option, so you can store your data in different data centers, which located in different cities. Which means if one of the city got a bump up and the data center actually being destroyed, that's only one copy of your data gone. So which means your data is really safe. So it have a very high reliability and high redundancy. And also there's something called almost immediate recover of the data. So which means if one copy of your data got missed, it will be recovered by other copies almost in the real time. So you won't really notice that your data has gone for one of the copy. Yeah. And lastly, I want to talk about a go global in minutes. Okay. So because most of the cloud vendors like Alibaba Cloud, they have data centers around the world, which means they can actually, you can actually deploy all your services in a location which is close to your clients. And what does that mean is the latency that your client will experiencing is much lower, and they will have a better user experience. Okay. And lastly, I want to talk about Alibaba Cloud services. So here's just the so as you see, I list 7 here. This one's are just basic services. And here I'll only give you a brief intro of these services. If you want to get a deep understanding of what actually this service is doing and what parameters you can adjust, how you're gonna use these services for a real business problem, you can try out yourself with Alibaba Cloud. They have some free tier, basically means free services, and also you can attend a training course for that. Okay, so let's start with ECS, so Elastic Computer Service. So usually we call that ECS. So ECS essentially is the same as the server that you can see on-prem, but it is provided via cloud. So it usually acts as a compute layer in your cloud solution. So it can support workloads such as web hosting, applications, databases, authentication services, anything that you can think that a server can do. So based on your use case, you can spin up your ECS instance with different configurations. So what's even better is you can find some pre-configured ECS instance template in the marketplace, which will save you a lot of time. Okay. So VPC, which is Virtual Private Cloud, on the other hand, provides you with cloud solutions with a network layer. So it's like a private network space in Alibaba Cloud. And it enables a logic isolation when you're deploying or manage your Alibaba Cloud resources for your workload. So at the same time, it gives you the sufficient amount of access control and also security for your resources. So you can actually nominate who can access this resource. Auto auto scaling. So this one actually helps you to automatically increase and decrease your resource usage based on a certain criteria. So it's pretty much the one that we're talking about before. So in the Double 11 midnight, how we're gonna scale up the resource, scale down the resource. So you use the auto scaling service. Okay, and then let's talk about the server load balancer. So server load balancer helps you to balance the income request and send that to a pool of servers. So it comes with two flavors: the layer 4 load balancer and the layer 7, which is the HTTP one. So the layer 4 one is more efficient in terms of redirect the traffic, while the layer 7 is more intelligent, so it can give you more choice on the route how you're going to redirect the traffic. Okay, so after that I want to talk about a bit of the storage on cloud. So as you can see, we have two options here: the relational database and the object storage service. So the relational database, I think most people are pretty familiar with that. It's just like a SQL database. So it can store the data with a table format. So it's pretty much the same. But the good thing about cloud service the cloud provided relational database is you don't need to do all sorts of configurations. You just need to click on several buttons to create one. Yeah, and also so next let's talk about the object storage service, which is usually known for OSS. So OSS is used for store object files. So something like a PDF file, a photo, a picture, or even a video. And apart from the storage functionality, OSS also provides you with other easy use functionalities, such as you can use OSS to host a static web, and also you can use OSS to do some basic image processing. For example, you can crop the image, you can put a watermark on your image, and also you can actually rotate your image. Okay, so lastly I want to talk about the content delivery network. So what actually is content delivery network? So content delivery network is a method to alleviating the performance bottleneck of the network, which largely accelerates the speed of your service delivery to your client. So it becomes especially crucial when your business is actually globalized, where high latency is the killer to a good user experience. Okay, so that's the end of my talk. If you have any question, feel free to post onto the chat box.